Radio Retro Future.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I am Danked Lexicon, and welcome to a new edition of Steampunkish, the show where we discuss all types of retro and vintage-inspired science fiction and fantasy. And today we have a very special subject to discuss. For retro punks like myself, immersion is very important. I guess that's why people talk more about aesthetics and world building in steampunk-like settings than they talk about characters who are often nothing more but tour guides for the viewer, like the protagonists in the Mad Max movies, for example. So you would expect steampunkish games to focus on world building and exploration as well. And there is an argument to be made there that is the case with games like Renowned Explorers, and they are billions. But one particular genre we're always looking out for are Citybuilders, where you get the chance to create your own Vernian-style society. Which brings us to Frostpunk. Now, Frostpunk isn't the first city builder that we've come across. The other one is Lefis, Path of Progress, a game I always wanted to talk about. But in case of Lefis, it's not good, it's not bad, it's just forgettable. Have you played any Sierra city builder like Caesar 3? You have played Lefis, but without the armies, the invading forces, and the defensive structures. Oh, you know, just all the things that made Caesar 3 tense and exciting. Instead, all you have is resource production. Make sure all the requirements for your citizens are met, so their homes will improve and the population capacity will increase. But if you can't meet these requirements for a mere second, these houses devolve again and the excess population buggers off immediately, demolishing your entire economy. To summarize my feelings on Lefis, I can only recommend it to people that want a colorful steampunk-style city builder. But for the people that want a good game of the genre, I would recommend you get Caesar 3. Or consider Frostpunk. Frostpunk is published in 2018 by 11-Bit Studios. The studio that made This War of Mine, a survival simulator about a group of survivors in a city that is under siege in the midst of a civil war. It is a good game, just not a fun game in the traditional sense. Have you played Spec Ops: The Line, where you are dropped in the middle of a city, destroyed by a sandstorm, and then you're fighting your own troops only to discover it was all for nothing? So it's kinda like This War of Mine in the sense that it is not fun despite having good mechanics and good writing. No, it's not fun by design, because it sets out to make you feel sorry for a bunch of sprites. It was the reason I was very hesitant to buy Frostpunk, despite it scratching an itch of mine and having great aesthetics. But that is the benefit of Patreon. I get to spend other people's money. Although Frostpunk shares many of the themes of its predecessor, it's very different. Still not a joyful tale of happy-go-lucky settlers, but its gameplay is way more optimistic. You feel your city becoming more resistant to the ever-increasing cold and hopelessness. It is what makes me want to come back to the game and guide my people through this Iceage. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Frostpunk takes place by the end of the 19th century. In the midst of a new Iceage, an expedition leaves London to travel across the frozen seas to start a new settlement in a crater where they are safe from the icy winds. A huge steam generator is the heart of your new settlement that provides the heat that protects your subjects from the ever-decreasing temperature. The weather here is your primary enemy. If your subjects remain in the cold too long, they'll fall ill, and if they don't get treated in medical tents in time, frostbite sets in, which can only be cured through amputation. Better medical facilities become available as you research new technologies at the workshops, but in the early game, your population forces you to make decisions that will affect what means you'll have at your disposal to increase the chances of survival. Will you put your children to work, Or not? What about the gravely ill? Will you take on any other survivors from the outside? To all these conflicts, you need to find solutions in order to get through the game. Frostpunk is all about finding that balance between ethics and survival during an ice age. However, there's one more enemy you need to contend with: the survivors themselves. Your subjects suffer through a lot, and for what? Hell literally froze over. Then there is the quality of the food, 24-hour shifts, and of course the weather itself that puts your population under some duress. You can create entertainment facilities to resolve discontent. I mean, who doesn't like martial arts, right? However, there is also hope that needs to be built up to make sure your population remains loyal to the cause. During the progression of the story, you have to make a choice between order and spirituality as a way to inspire your people to fight on. So basically you get to choose between becoming a theocracy or a police state. The game does not force you to apply these laws. However, you do need to take action, because if the people lose all hope, they will turn on you. Ungrateful little shit. Yes, Frostpunk is not your typical city builder. Not only is its story the closest to traditional steampunk I have seen in a while, it's probably one of the most beautiful and immersive settings I've seen. The city looks alive and very steampunkish, more so than most similar worlds I've seen in video games, even if you can actually walk in between the buildings. Seriously, why can't I zoom in any closer than this? Its basic gameplay is very straightforward on the surface. You have your build menu, your research tree, and your laws to unlock new buildings and abilities, like using age-impaired labor, forced overtime, and violent beatdowns on dissenters, but also the construction of a cemetery, a care house, and the production of prosthetics. However, some of the more advanced buildings require steam cores. This is a resource you can only find out in a Frostland. After you researched and constructed the beacon, you can create scout units to explore various locations on the world map. Besides resources like steam cores, you discover the fate of various other settlements and factions. Some places also allow you to construct outposts that deliver resources from time to time. You can also find ample supplies in your own settlement, but you need to assign your population to each production building. Huge automatons can replace full work crews, but these are less efficient. But you'll find they are not as vulnerable to the cold as their fleshy counterparts, and their usefulness should not be underestimated in a world of ice. Personnel management is one of the major challenges that, in combination with its limited amount of steam cores, forces you to experiment with various technologies and buildings during your playthroughs. As if the law system, its aesthetics, and its weather mechanic is not enough to set it apart from most games of its type, the game forces you to actually choose the types of buildings you want to use during your playthrough, unlike most city builders that have a set construction tree. But all that is not enough, no. There's something majestic about the dystopian and rural feel of your city. It genuinely looks like a settlement of survivors at the North Pole. Unlike the buildings in They Are Billions, whose picturesque buildings do seem a little bit out of place. Also, the automatons look like fantastical beasts that feel far more realistic than most robots I've seen in other steampunk settings. Well, at least until Iron Harvest comes out. The environment is very well done. We see snow melt away for the heat produced by the steam hubs, and we see the survivors wrestle themselves through the thick blanket of snow. The light that emits from the buildings breathes much needed warmth into the bleak frostlands. Also, the encounters on the world map are great, but I hope they add some random events to the main campaign at some point. Regardless, the choices are interesting and it should entertain you for a couple of games. And its music and sound design complements the game very well. The constant pumping, the screams of discontent, and the roaring of the generator really draws you into the world of Frostpunk. I'm proud to have Frostpunk in my collection, and I'm looking forward to further expansions of the game. I especially hope they're going to up the number of scenarios available, because 3 does seem a little few, especially because the game only lasts about 6 hours or so, which means you can play it through the course of 2 evenings. As for what else I'd like to see, new random events, maybe warfare between survivors that are fighting over the dwindling resources. Who knows, we'll just have to wait and see. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to end my review. And thank you all for watching Steampunkish. This video has been made possible by the Anachronistic Order. Jax Merrick, Steamy Wonders, Arkveld Absinthe, Steam Chest, and Mr. Lotus. Thank you for your patronage.